What if I told you that the financial crash of 2008 that ripped away trillions in wealth and shattered millions of lives was not some unavoidable accident, but a deliberate money-making machine built by the banks themselves, and that the same banks that caused the nightmare got rescued with hundreds of billions of your taxpayer dollars, recovered almost instantly, showered themselves with massive bonuses, and walked away virtually unpunished, while ordinary families are still paying the heartbreaking price today through crushing inflation, slower wage growth, and the constant fear that the next crash is just around the corner. Yeah, you heard that right. Banks didn't just survive 2008, they got richer on your back. You got the bill and you're still paying it every single day. If you have ever lain awake at night wondering why your American dream feels further away than ever, while the people who wrecked everything keep winning, then you are about to feel the full rage you deserve, because today we are ripping open 2008 How Banks Stole Your Future and got away with it. The verified timeline of reckless subprime lending that preyed on desperate families, the bundling of toxic loans into fake safe investments, the rating agencies that sold their souls for fees, the self-reinforcing death spiral that destroyed lives, and the deeper betrayal that explains why you're still paying for their greed through the normalized cycle of boom-bust and taxpayer-funded rescue. Stick with me until the very last word, because the documented causes the 10% unemployment that left fathers unable to feed their children, the thousands of bank failures, the bailouts that saved the criminals, while families lost everything the obscene bonuses paid while people were evicted, and the way this framework turned private greed into public suffering will leave you equal parts heartbroken and burning with righteous anger at how the system was rebuilt to protect the guilty, while the innocent keep footing the bill. If you're tired of watching your hard-earned money quietly fund the next bailout, while the people who caused the problems laugh all the way to the bank, hit that subscribe button right now, turn on notifications, so you never miss these deep dives, and drop a comment below telling me whether you or someone you love was personally devastated by 2008, or if this explanation has you finally seeing the betrayal for what it is. I read every single comment, and we are building this conversation together as a community that demands justice for the lives that were stolen. Welcome to Money's Hidden Past. Rich people lied. We fact-checked. Let us begin on the morning of 2008, when the housing bubble that banks had deliberately inflated for years finally exploded, and the very institutions that engineered the disaster triggered the largest financial crisis since the Great Depression. For nearly a decade leading up to 2008, banks had been aggressively pushing huge loans on people who could not really afford houses called subprime mortgages. These loans were handed out to borrowers with terrible credit, low or no income, and no real ability to repay all in the name of quick fees and bigger bonuses. The banks did not hold on to these toxic loans. Instead, they sliced and diced them into complex securities called mortgage-backed securities and collateralized debt obligations, then sold them to investors worldwide as supposedly rock-solid safe investments. Rating agencies that were paid handsomely by the banks slapped Dermot gold standard ratings on this garbage for extra cash, knowingly misleading everyone. Investors, including your pension funds and retirement accounts, bought them believing they were low-risk, high-reward. The entire machine ran on reckless margin lending and a toxic culture of endless prosperity. When home prices finally stopped rising and borrowers started defaulting, the whole house of cards came crashing down. Margin calls forced mass selling, creating a vicious, self-reinforcing spiral of panic. Banks stopped trusting each other, credit markets froze overnight, and the economy nearly died. Lehman Brothers, the fourth largest investment bank in America, filed for bankruptcy in September 2008, the largest bankruptcy in history, sending shockwaves around the globe. The Dow Jones plunged thousands of points in days. Millions of families lost their homes, overnight jobs vanished, and the American dream was shattered for an entire generation. The immediate human devastation was soul-crushing, and it marked the beginning of the Great Recession, a decade of pure economic hell that left scars still visible today. Unemployment skyrocketed to 10%, meaning 1 in 10 Americans who wanted to work could not find a job, with entire industries like construction and manufacturing collapsing. Foreclosures exploded as families who had been sold the lie of homeownership were evicted in record numbers. Retirement accounts that people had spent lifetimes building evaporated, losing trillions in value. The Great Recession was the worst economic nightmare since the 1930s, lasting years and leaving behind broken families, lost homes, and a generation that still struggles with debt and distrust. But here's the part that should make your blood boil. The same big banks that created the toxic loans, packaged the lies, and triggered the collapse got saved. With hundreds of billions of your taxpayer dollars through the Troubled Asset Relief Program and trillions more in secret Federal Reserve support, the government rushed in to rescue the very criminals who caused the disaster because they were supposedly too big to fail. The banks quickly bounced back, paid themselves record bonuses in the years that followed, and almost no one went to jail. A handful of executives faced fines or civil settlements, but the criminal prosecutions were a joke, despite mountains of evidence of fraud in mortgage origination, securitization, and outright deception. Meanwhile, regular people like you are still paying the price today through higher costs, slower wage growth, and the constant fear that the next crash is coming. The banks didn't just survive 2008, they emerged stronger, richer, and more powerful. You and your family got stuck with the bill that keeps compounding year after year. The deeper and more infuriating consequence, the reason you're still paying for it nearly 2 decades later, lies in the institutional architecture that was built from the ashes of that crash. The crisis prompted new rules and expanded Federal Reserve powers, but it also locked in moral hazard the sickening guarantee that the biggest banks would always be rescued no matter how reckless they got. This framework shifted the risk from greedy speculators onto your shoulders and mine. Bailouts, repeated quantitative easing, and exploding national debt became the standard response to every crisis that followed. The hidden tax you pay is not a line item on your paycheck. It shows up as inflation that eats your savings higher, future taxes to service the debt-distorted housing, and stock prices that make the American dream unaffordable for your kids, and the endless boom-bust cycles that crush wage earners while protecting the elite. The national debt, which exploded to fund those rescues, now exceeds $35 trillion, with interest payments alone rivaling entire federal programs. Every time the system breaks, the public balance sheet swells, and the bill gets passed to you, the taxpayer, the worker, the parent trying to build a future. This is exactly how the banks stole your future and got away with it. They built the bubble, profited wildly from it, crashed the economy, and then forced you to clean up their mess while they walked away richer than before. The energetic betrayal that still burns is that the very people who caused the suffering were rewarded for it. After the crash, the narrative flipped to austerity and belt-tightening for ordinary families, while the financial system received unlimited support. The 2008 disaster exposed the dangers of unchecked greed, but the response created an even bigger danger: the expectation that the government would always save the banks. That guarantee has only grown encouraging: more risk, more leverage, and more fragility. The cost is socialized onto you through inflation that makes everything more expensive, higher taxes that fund the rescues, and lost opportunities that make life harder for your children. Wage earners and savers get crushed because their money loses value in the rescue operations. The wealthy asset owners at the top ride the rebound because quantitative easing pumps up stocks and real estate. The cycle keeps repeating because the system was rebuilt after 2008 to make sure it never truly fails for those at the top. The crash did not kill the era of elite excess. It simply taught the banks how to make the public pay for their mistakes forever. The sarcastic truth that history books gloss over is that 2008 did not end the era of financial recklessness. It redesigned the game so the banks could never truly lose. The bailouts and expanded powers that followed were sold as necessary to protect you, but they came with a hidden price tag you are still paying every single day. Banks learned they could gamble with your future, knowing the government would step in with your money if things went wrong. That safety net for them became a trap for you. The ordinary citizen pays through eroded savings, higher living costs, and a national debt that grows larger with every crisis. This is not ancient history. It is the framework that still decides how every financial storm is handled today. And it is why the bill from 2008 keeps showing up in your life in the form of inflation taxes and broken promises. The mature but painful recognition here is that 2008 was never about justice. It was about protecting the powerful at your expense. The reforms that followed the crash stopped the immediate bleeding but created a system where elite failure is rewarded and your suffering is the collateral damage. Understanding this does not mean giving up hope. It means seeing the machine for what it is and demanding that the next time it breaks, the cost does not land on you again. The day the banks nearly died in 2008 did not kill their power. It simply taught them how to make you pay for it forever. If this deep dive into 2008, how banks stole your future and got away with it, lit a fire in you about the real long-term cost of elite greed, then do me a favor right now. Smash that like button to let the algorithm know this conversation matters. Share this video with every friend and family member who was hurt by that crash or fears the next one, and let us keep exposing what they do not want you to see. I will catch you in the next one, where we break down the next hidden chapter in the history of financial betrayal. Until then, stay informed, stay angry, and remember that when Wall Street crashes, the bill does not disappear, it just gets passed to you and your children.